Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me on short notice. This is not a huge scoop. I want to manage your expectations. That's why it has a little scoop. But someone sent me someone who's been very valuable to me for many years, someone who has studied this case closely and does have connections to it, found something and they sent it to me. And I just thought it was really interesting. And it builds upon what we're hearing as potential rumored speculation that Wendi may actually be charged or have to face some sort of consequences herself for the murder of her ex-husband, Dan Markel, as she was the main beneficiary of the murder and drove to the crime scene, an hour after the murder and yada, yada, yada. But someone sent this to me, and I just think it bodes very well, showing Wendi is nervous and that potentially something unbeknownst to us, the public, might be coming down the pipeline or is more likely. And that is that in October, and I've put this, I just sent out on my Patreon, the actual document is a public document, but the person who sent this to me found this, said, heads up, Fancy, Wendi is putting her apartment in Miami Beach into a trust and she's securing her assets. And as we know, the Adelsons also did that, I think around in 2020, or they redid their wills, and obviously they were getting all of their finances and trusts and things in order after Charlie was arrested. So Wendi is also doing that, which is a good sign that she is worried that she may either be charged or somehow someone is coming after her assets. So she's securing her assets within a trust. And this is a document in which she's putting her Miami Beach apartment, which she moved away from in the summer. I know I came out and said that because I heard from people that would know. And I saw evidence that she was in Austin, Texas, or moving to Austin, Texas. I remember I first put out I think in May, I put out a post that I heard that there was a rumored move. And then later in that summer, she did move. And then after I said that rumored move, literally a week later, her apartment came on the market. So it's, I kind of knew all along, even though there were people that are like, Fancy's lying, Wendi's still in Miami. Well, it's now been proven that she is in Austin. And you can even see in this document, this was signed in October of last year. So it was in fourth quarter last year. Wendi actually took her apartment in Miami, which she's rented, and put it into a trust. Let me read it. It says, October 24, between Wendi Adelson, a single woman whose it's a P.O. box, so I left it up there. And it said, dated September 16th, full power and authority to protect, conserve, sell, lease, encumber, manage, and or dispose of the real property pursuant to a statute. But it's here. It says the trustee of Wendi Revocable Trust, dated September of last year. And you can see she has a notary signing it. And you can see she's got two witnesses signing this. And one is in Austin, Texas, someone by the name of Sabrina Berger. And then some name that I can't pronounce, you can barely read, from Round Rock, Texas, which is very close to Austin, Texas. So she's in Texas. She moved there in the summer, and in the fall, she started placing her assets into a trust to protect them. So I think that this is very interesting and speaks to her mindset and potential for her facing knowing that there's a good potential if her mom gets convicted and if she is feeling the heat, that she could potentially be charged or arrested or somehow people coming after her finances. So again, this is what people do when they're trying to in full protection mode. So I thought it was interesting to share. Thank you again to the person who sent me this tip and was tenacious enough to know where to look and to keep up on this stuff. So credit to them. And thank you for sharing this with me like you have many other things along the way. So anyway, I am just going to let that sink in. Again, a very short little scoop about Wendi, potentially worried. We're sitting in Texas worried, making moves. And I'm going to now flip to a screen of some art that I did. It was very Warhol-esque of Donna's mouth, lying mouth, a little tribute inspiring all the damage this mouth has done, all the damage it's done. I just thought it deserved a closer look, an expose. So I'm going to go in here now and read some of the comments and then sign off because it's just a short little scoop. Wendy's putting her assets into trusts. Let me see here. Hello. Amazingly true. Hello, Christina. Justice for Dan Markel, says Renita. Madeline says, I'm all ears. So is Donna. But narrow, big ears, narrow ear canals. Hi, Pussycat. Donna's, speaking of, there's Donna's very narrow ear canals. Not just narrow, very narrow. Harold Dull says, morally responsible for sure. Now let's make it legal. Another ticket to NAM, says Renita. So they can't be sued for wrongful death in civil court. Yep, it's just very interesting. It's not a, I guess innocent people could do this, or people that think that they will be wrongfully charged, but still, it's like she's worried. And, if you just look at her brother was convicted. Her mom is now going on trial for a murder in which she is an unindicted co-conspirator. And it's pretty clear from the last trial and a little bit from the last two trials that the state thinks she's implicated in this and that she very much knew what was going on. And Georgia has called her out on that. While she is the state's witness and has limited and derivative use immunity. So now, sure, mom was going to go on trial. She's left the state of Florida. She's on a new start in a new state, and she's putting all of her assets in trust. This does not look like Wendi is living a carefree existence. I think she's very worried. She actually has a boyfriend. Let me see here. Let me see. Yes, we can go back and look. That's her signature. Yeah, that's a real weird signature. That's a very weak. Is that supposed to be a W and an A? She just even signs the initial. She just initials it. What's that all about? Let's get some psychological analysis of that handwriting, that signature. Yeah, I think that, much like OJ, they're waiting to see, it is a disappointment. I can very much assume it is a disappointment for the Markels to have this delay, especially when it was something that the state knew about. And while they didn't read it or have access to it, these redacted lawyer communications, that 100,000 of them, but they knew they existed. And now that it gives the defense a reason to say, hey, wait a minute, because I don't know, without those redactions, and again, it makes sense if you look back, we were all like, what's going on? Why are they canceling all these depots? Well, now we know, because Josh Selman said we were dealing the last 2 or 3 weeks with all this stuff coming down the pipeline, as long as with the new investigation, which Jason Selman also said proved to be false. But Sarah Dugan did say it did yield new discovery from that investigation, and they plan on using at least 1 or 2 of the calls on the new wiretaps, which were 2.5 weeks in February. So it is something. And then Harvey Zell was subpoenaed, and that wasn't subpoenaed for no reason. So it's just very interesting. Wendy's sitting in Texas, securing her assets. So, and she did this right before Donna's trial in September. Wasn't Donna supposed to go in on October? Someone correct me if I have that wrong. And if you remember from OJ, they sued in civil court after the prosecution failed to get a conviction. The prosecution did not do well in the OJ trial. Markel should sue, and they can put it into a separate trust for the boys. I'm a little worried now that the boys are going to be loaded with all of this money, I don't know if that's necessarily good to throw millions of dollars at them when they turn 18, especially after an upbringing like the one they've had with all this turmoil. Yeah, let's go back to her teeth. Such pretty teeth. Look at those blue eyes. That's your real picture, Mr. Stilton? Uh, Let me see here. Yeah. I'm just captivated by the damage that one single organ on one single body has done. Wendy needs to leave all the money with her brother Robert, Amazingly True says. Yeah, well, we know in the 2020 wills, which are also public, and I've done live streams on these before, the Adelson family trust in the wills, they made Harvey and Donna said that Wendy is the executor, gets everything. Charlie was out of it. But I think Charlie at the time, uh, he had his own legal stuff. They probably thought it wasn't safe to tie him with that. And then he had his own money, right? So we know he had his own assets. But Wendy got everything. And it made explicit instruction in those wills that Robert was to get nothing and that they were purposely leaving him out. Which is why he needs to write a book or do something and tell his side of the story, and then all the proceeds he gets for that, he doesn't need to feel guilty about profiting off this tragedy. He can just view it as his inheritance that he did not get from the Adelsons because he had enough character and integrity to think that murder was wrong, essentially, and not go along with his family of origin that committed a murder behind his back. YTH, can you repeat your theory on the Title III wire Zell stuff, witness intimidation? Yes. So I think that the two witnesses that Donna, that we both know their backgrounds because Ment's her lawyer, and Ed Talk did put out some very good videos about these two women and their backgrounds. And then we heard Donna saying, right before Judge Adelson told her to stop talking, they were making the case in that hearing that they needed to depose these two jailhouse informants that had told Donna something to the effect of that Katie Magbanawa was extorting Charlie, or was blackmailing Charlie, and that she was going to go back to Tallahassee and really like hand it or get the Adelson family, and things that made Katie that basically they were inmates with Katie, these two women, and they would go on stand or provide testimony to discredit Katie's testimony, right? Because they had been in jail with her, and so that she had said some things that were backed up Charlie and her and Donna's defense theory. But we know from their backgrounds, they're both troubled drug addicts. One, I learned from Mentor Lawyer's videos, stole a cart of donated clothes from Goodwill or something like that. So just really troubled individuals who could either just be lying for the attention or just lying to lie, or could, for whatever reason, being trying to curry favor with a woman that they know that could benefit her financially if they were to be helpful to her in her case. And they just kind of didn't care, weren't that smart. So there were these two women, and Donna and her team were trying to get them deposed. That's a Freudian slip. Deposed rather quickly before they left the jail, before they were released from the Leon County Jail, because the fear was they'd go back, they couldn't find them again, and they would go off and do drugs and wouldn't be reliable therefore. So those were two people we knew. But I think that this is something that is separate from those two. I think that this is someone who came to the state and said, Donna approached me, or Donna's been confiding on me or talking to me, and I have some potentially damaging stuff on Donna. And Donna told me ABC. I don't know what those things were, but things that basically discredited Donna and her defense theory. And the fact that we also know, so that's what I think happened. I think it's someone separate, and I think it's someone that wanted to get a deal with the state to get some benefit from whatever troubles they're facing with the law. Then I think that it's very interesting. We know that Harvey's Zell was subpoenaed, and there was something concrete enough to get a judge to sign a very difficult to obtain Title III wire. So I think it was something concrete enough of this. And we also know that Sarah Dugan said that one of the things the state that the defense said they wanted as a part of this new discovery was video from the jail, right? So all of that makes me think, I put that in a pot and I think what this sounds like to me is that someone came forward to the state and said, hey, look, I can be an informant for you, confidential informant. I can go and I can get Donna to talk. I can record her and I can come back and provide you with information that's helpful for to help discredit her and her theory because she's talking to me. And potentially why I think the wires, because we know that the wires have to be somebody on the outside, right? So it's somebody's phone they're tapping on the outside. So it's not Charlie's, it's not Donna's, because they're incarcerated and all their calls are monitored, right? So unless she has some burner phone or something. So it's likely to be the Harvey or Wendi, right? The family members. I think it's most likely Harvey because if they tap Harvey's phone and they've subpoenaed Harvey's Zelle records, Harvey is criming, or they suppose that Harvey is criming and committing crimes. So that could be paying off witness because we got some sort of money transaction, right? With the Zelle records. So that is possibly paying someone that he's not supposed to be. And the only way that they could get the Title III is from this new investigation, and they have this new confidential informant. Now, Zellman at the start of the last hearing said this new investigation is proven to be inaccurate or false. So he discredited it. But we saw Rauschbaum say all sorts of things about how Katie's proffer was not of anything of value and all sorts of things that, of course, something that a defense attorney would say, his interpretation. So I don't really take that as concrete. And I know Sarah Dugan very much did say that there has been some new discovery that's come from this investigation. It's complete. It was significant enough for them to get a judge to sign off on a Title III wire, which is hard. So my theory, given all that, is that Harvey was paying or attempting to pay, or they had heard that Harvey was paying or attempting to pay off somebody that could potentially be a witness or in Donna's trial and say things that were favorable or unfavorable to Donna or unfavorable about Catherine Magbanua. Or they had got Donna to confide in this person about things that would discredit Donna, and the fact that maybe Donna said that Harvey's paying, he's going to take care of these people. That could happen for you too if you were to come forward and say something. I don't know. We'll find out at trial, but they think somebody is committing a crime and they need a wire on somebody on the outside. So that, and then subpoenaing Harvey's Zelle records, which is how he pays someone outside of the banking system, how you transfer money, leads me to believe that Harvey is crime, which is really funny because look at Harvey's life 15 years ago, right? Before the murder. He was a dentist in Tarmac. I think that's how you say it. So it wasn't even like he was like a smooth operator, like Miami Beach. Like he was in like some Florida suburb. And, we've seen The Office. It wasn't too fancy, like some office building in the suburbs in Florida. And just a family business, just him. He's the only dentist there. It's not like he's running this big corporation. So it's Harvey. Now I heard, well, at least I heard from Bree probably like a year ago that when Charlie was just convicted, that Harvey was driving a Maybach, and I think it was Charlie's. And so Harvey's driving this Maybach around now and driving in between prisons. And, because we know that Donna was arrested right after Charlie was convicted. So he was driving this Maybach, and now he's criming on the outside and he's driving in between prisons. Like, look at what his life has become from what could potentially just be a very comfortable retiree with his family, seeing his grandkids, living a life at the beach, working out every day. And now he's, driving in between prisons, getting, his phone wiretapped and, his Zelle records subpoenaed. I mean, he has now become a criminal, alleged criminal, and he could get arrested. They said that Sarah Dugan said in that the last hearing, she said that she didn't expect a superseding indictment or more charges, but that's in relation to Donna. So we'll see. But Harvey must be feeling the heat. He's being watched, and they're not letting up on these other Adelson family members. And that even goes, they're They're feeling the heat. Let's get her mouth back up there. And then look at that, right? She's creating a trust and moving her assets over from Texas. Let me see if I can pull up that Harvey dental reprimand. I was going to do it, but I was getting a little worn out. Harvey is really not doing well. Oh, here we go. I posted this on October 19th, 2023. We will watch it together right now, and I'll read through the comments. It's only 2 minutes long. Gotta get through this freaking ad. One moment, I'm gonna pull this up. And just listen to Harvey. It's just so interesting. It's like he doesn't take accountability. Harvey and Wendi are the ones on the outside that are feeling the heat, right? And this is Harvey getting pretty much his ass handed to him. And they were like, and I titled this, if you want to go to my video, right, my channel, and watch this again. Can you see this on the screen? I can't see it on my screen, so I just want to make sure you can see it. Let me know if you can see this playing or not.
Would be Dr. Harvey Adelson, DDS, case number 2015-09091. And Dr. Fapke and Dr. Thomas are recused. And Dr. Adelson, before you have a seat, kindly be sworn in, sir. Okay. Thank you. And Counselor, again, since I served, you can either ask me to step aside or I could continue to preside.
We'll continue with you,
Thank
sir.
you.
We're on a roll.
Thank you. Right,
And my name is Randolph Collette. I'm with the Doctors Company. Here on behalf of Dr. Adelson.
Thank you. Prosecution.
This is Department of Health versus Harvey Adelson, DDS, case number 2015-09091. This is coming before the board as a settlement agreement, and there are 2 counts in the administrative complaint alleged that the respondent violated section 466.0281X Florida statutes for being guilty of incompetence or negligence by failing to meet the minimum standard of performance in diagnosis and treatment when measured against the generally prevailing peer performance, and section 466.0281M Florida statutes by failing to keep written dental records and medical histories justifying the course of treatment of the patient. The terms of the settlement agreement include appearance before the board, a reprimand to the license, an administrative fine of $7,500 to be paid within 12 months of the final order, costs in the amount of $3,631.04 to be paid within 12 months of the final order, continuing education courses to be taken within 12 months of the final order in exodontia level 1, which is a 3 to 6 hour course with a demonstration of achieved competency, diagnosis and treatment 3 to 6 hour course level 1 to be taken at and these courses are to be taken at an accredited college of dentistry or through a board approved continuing education provider, and the laws and rules examination within 12 months of the final order.
Thank you. Defense counsel?
Yes, sir. Just would like to point out for everyone's benefit that this is Dr. Adelson's first appearance before the board in his career of 47 years practicing dentistry. And Dr. Adelson is available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Board members, any questions of Dr. Adelson or counsel? Yes, Dr. Peter.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just had a question. What was the reason you extracted 18?
I extracted one tooth, and the tooth was periodontally involved, had 8mm pockets, mesial and distal. The tooth had an occlusal restoration that was defective. It had recurrent decay, and the tooth was not in function. And I had explained the patient to that. I even wrote the patient a letter because the patient asked me, what, why were you doing it? And so I wrote the letter. The day that I extracted it, I personally read him the consent form. My consent form was bullet form. It explained everything that could possibly happen. And ironically, he questioned me. He said, what about you have here a fracture? I said, well, I've never had anything like that happen, but it could happen. Unfortunately, it happened.
Now, also in your notes or the material we got said that you had treated it with Arrestin and it resolved to 4 to 5 millimeters.
That note was erroneous. When you look at my periodontal chartings, what happened was I have a Dentrix software system and the perio charting is separate. You have to pull that together. So I didn't pull that together when they were, when the case was in mediation. When I started to read the review of what I had done, I said, oh, wow, we don't have the old chartings. And that's when I requested another review of the case, because if you look at the chartings that this man had, he still had an 8 millimeter pocket. He had the hygienist's note was a general note that he was getting periodontal improvement in the rest of his mouth, not in that one particular tooth.
This is an ad.
Do you know what's actually in your tap water? My name is Johnny. I am an engineer, and I've been on a mission.
And was that tooth mobile at all?
I
Obviously
didn't
not.
understand it.
Was it mobile? It wasn't mobile, was it? Obviously.
Oh, it wasn't.
So it was non-functional, not hurting. It just had the pocketing.
Well, he was diabetic. He had a history of diabetes. He had a 6 millimeter pocket on the distal of the adjacent tooth. And I said to him he had mesial root caries on tooth number 18. He had a faulty occlusal amalgam restoration that had recurrent decay. And I said, it would be in your general health if I took the tooth out. And he agreed to the treatment. He signed the consent form. He agreed to it.
Thank you. Dr. TJ?
When was the most recent radiograph of that tooth prior to extracting?
There's a Panorex in history, and there's bite wings that I think are, I have to look on the exact notes, but I think there were a few months because this happened in 11. And it happened in 12. The bite wing x-rays are, I think, 11. I think in December of 11.
But the Panorex was in 2005, correct? According to the notes?
I have to look at that. I can't.
So you had bite wings. Did you have a full mouth series or just bite wings?
Initially on the patient, we had a full mouth series.
I understand, but it looks like in the record that the Panorex or anything that showed the apices of that root of number 18 was back in 2005. What you had were bite wings of number 18, which does not show, correct me if I'm wrong, apices of tooth number 18 that were recent prior to extracting that tooth. And as we know, standard of care is to obtain x-rays with periapical that extends to the apices of the roots prior to extraction of a tooth. That's standards of care across
Can't
the
answer the
boards.
question about the Panorex. I
Correct.
have to look on the notes.
Well, I will tell you, it's 2005.
Okay.
And so you attempted an extraction of a tooth without having a recent x-ray that showed the apices of the tooth. So I understand you said there was a 6 millimeter pocket of the adjacent tooth and the distal 8 millimeter pockets, both mesial and distal, of this tooth, but you had no picture of the apices of this tooth, which is the most important. You have to have a recent x-ray. I don't extract teeth without having a recent x-ray. And when patients show up to my office with one that's inadequate, I obtain one without charging the patient.
I also did the same thing.
Okay. But on this day, you did not.
I didn't.
And then, the force that is required to break a mandible is pretty significant. And I can tell you because I fix those that come in these instances. And in my 17-year career, I've not broken a mandible. You get to a point where it becomes a feel that you understand that 301 elevator or that cow horn or that lower universal or whatever your weapon of choice is, you stop and then you perform an ostectomy on the tooth, or you actually split the mesial and distal roots before you remove that. So it is a pretty excessive type of force that you have to apply to break a mandible. Because I've fixed many of them. For counsel, was this indemnified?
Yes.
And what was the
200.
200?
So any other questions from board members? Yes, Dr. Coe.
Yeah, just to our attorneys, you had mentioned the settlement was a letter of reprimand.
No,
In my notes, it says concern,
it's a letter of concern.
just for the record.
Yes, you're correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Dr. TJ?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, kindly signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Only thing I didn't get, and I apologize, what were the actual costs? I know it said in the settlement.
The actual, I'm sorry, the actual costs were over the.
Okay, perfect. I could read that.
It was, no, I just, I'm sorry. The actual cost came to $3,644.94, but the settlement calls for no more than $3,631.04.
Excellent. So it'll be 3,631.04. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask.
All right. I mean, that did not sound. I mean, he went and did all this work without taking a recent X-ray, and he was reprimanded for that. Not good, Harvey. Yeah, and Charlie did have a lot of failed implants. And even on those wiretap calls in 2016, he's like basically a patient told him that he called it a dentist. He was having a problem with a dentist whose office he was working at. And he called the dentist whose patient it was that he did surgery on. And the dentist actually called Charlie. And I think this ended up being one of Charlie's settlements. It's on my channel, but basically said that they told Charlie, or they wrote in the notes on the chart, that this person was allergic to a certain drug, and Charlie ended up giving it to him. And then on this call with the dentist, he was like just saying on the chart, it's called chart change is the wiretap. But he tells the dentist, he's like, look, just, was it written in pencil or was it written in pen? And he was like basically telling him to alter and the charts so that Charlie wouldn't get in trouble. And the dentist goes, oh, I can't do that. And basically he ended up giving him the medicine. And he even says later on, he goes, a lot of times I just give it to him anyway, even if they say that, I give it to him. It's just unbelievable. And apparently I've heard that Charlie had basically under the table paid in cash schemes going on with a lot of these dental offices where they weren't like reporting a lot of their work, and it was like a tax, to avoid tax. It was like, and also too, it was, he had a lot of like kickbacks, and obviously not legal, but that is just totally how Charlie works the system, right? So Charlie was doing a lot of shady shit, I'm told. And it's like a kickback scheme that he had with a lot of these dental offices. So yeah, he broke this patient's jaw, and he didn't take an X-ray before he went in and did the, big no-no to alter a chart. Yeah, and it's on, the feds were listening. The FBI were listening while he was doing all this. So just insane. Hey, y'all, coming in late, but that channel, Misha Janice, broke this a couple months ago. Well, I posted this in 2003, in October 2003. So actually I broke it, but it's been on my channel. Two years ago. Let me see here. Yeah. What a horror show. Let me see what else. Yep, you can hear all about on the wiretaps. Yeah, it did seem kind of a low payout. All right, so just going back for those joining us now, I'm going to sign off, but let me see here. Yeah, Wendy's putting her, the Wendy scoop is that someone sent me a tip that Wendy is putting putting her from Texas, is putting her Miami, Florida apartment in trust. So it is, it's looking like Wendy's a little worried and protecting herself. She's securing her assets. So I'm gonna look and see if anybody has any comments. And I just wanted to give you a little present to know that Wendy is worried. Little Wendy scoop. I believe it. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Take care and yeah.